Hello and welcome back to Supply Chain. And Phoebe wants to say hello in Zimbabwean.
Oh my goodness, you put me at a sport. I think it's masquerade. I don't know how to pronounce it very well, but I'm learning the language of Shona. And it sounds so much like Bantu. It's much easier to pronounce than any other language that I've come through. And it's I really do appreciate. I can hear more now than I could hear when I first went into Zimbabwe, but I'm still learning how to speak it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were talking about your biggest failure.
My biggest failure. Okay, that's a tricky question because, as you know, we work in a very imperfect environment. In the humanitarian sector, we call them lessons learned, not necessarily mistakes. And once we take them as lessons learned, then we are able to make sure that we correct them so that they don't happen again. But I do recall one time there was this, I was doing procurement, and there was this big order for steel toe boots and branded t-shirts that we were required to procure. It was a significant amount, and because of the emergency response, we needed to actually ship them to DRC, and we needed to ship them very quickly, and we also had to charter a flight to do that. And so it was really time-bound type of a procurement activity. And so we went through all the processes. We awarded the contract, and the shipment was delivered. And then when it was delivered, I was actually taking some time off myself, but everything was done. And the next day I got a call from the office, and I was told to come to the office, only to realize that there was a concern that the shipment that went to DRC actually was a faulty shipment. And they sent us photos, and even I couldn't believe
So
because
let me cut you short. When you receive that email and they're asking you, Phoebe, have you checked your email? Where are you? What was going through your mind?
first of all, I was like, okay, this is pretty unusual because when I go on leave, I'm on leave, right? It's highly unusual that someone recalls me from leave. And so when I got this call, I knew something was off. Obviously, I did not have access to emails on my phone. I don't know about you guys, but those days, um, we didn't have emails on phones. And we didn't even have mobile phones, I recall. Mobile phones just came when? Is it
Yeah,
2003
2003
around?
and 4. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you had to come to the office to actually look at your email. So when I was called, I came to the office and I was briefed, yes, that, what did you ship to DRC? And I was like, okay, we had t-shirts, steel toe boots, they came in, they went, and so what's the issue? And so I got to see the pictures. It was mind-boggling. The quality issues was just out of this world. We had t-shirts that had manufacturing faults, like a hole at the front, or where you have the branded logo, it's reflected at the back, upside down, inside out, and even the small, the labels of small t-shirt, large t-shirt was all mismatched. The small t-shirt was extra, extra, extra large, and the large t-shirt was small size, all labels on the t-shirt. So for me, when I saw this, obviously the first thing I thought was, where did we go wrong? And luckily, I had a very understanding manager, and we said, you know what, let's step back. Let's look at what are the lessons learned here. So because this shouldn't happen again. And so when we started really analyzing, how did we even, what was the criteria for selection for this supplier? Who is the supplier? Did we do proper due diligence? When it came to receiving, do we have strong quality control, quality assurance practices at the receiving end? And all these things, we looked through the whole procurement process from the beginning to the end. And true enough, we had some lessons learned. And some of those lessons learned from that example I have remembered till now. It was a very painful experience, to be honest.
That's almost 17 years ago.
I have never forgotten that one.
What did you learn out of it?
Okay, first, the criteria for selection wasn't to the point it should have been, right? We should have done things like sampling. We should have, when it comes to quality assurance, we should have used the samples to receive. We should have done, allowed more time to actually go through the consignment and verifying that everything was okay. Eventually, the supplier was blacklisted and we never used that supplier again. But it was painful in the sense that we lost significant amount of money out of that consignment. The supplier was required to replace. We were able to hold back some of the money that we hadn't paid his invoice, and so we never really, we were able to recover some funds back, and we were able to blacklist the supplier. But yeah, there were some lessons learned. I wasn't the person responsible for receiving, but that was also another area that we needed to really control and manage, and even train those who are receiving. Do you know how to do quality control of this consignment so that next time it doesn't happen again? It was painful.
A few minutes ago, when we were on a break, we were talking about also the culture shock, because you travel a lot. You've been to Yemen, right now you're in Zimbabwe. How do you manage to deal with all those things, the expectations of that environment that you are in?
Okay, so there's certain preparations that you have to do before you travel in any place. And the first thing is around ensuring that you understand the culture of the place that you're going in. It's important that you're accepted, not only by the communities that you're supporting, but also your own staff, because they come from that culture, they have certain traditions. So for example, if I go to Yemen, for example, the requirement is that women needs to be covered up. All right, I'm not a Muslim, but I still have to wear my hijab. I still have to cover my hair, all right? And I have to be very careful not to shake people's hands. So I have to learn the culture of the place before I go there. Because the minute you don't, you put yourself at risk in some places. You actually put yourself at risk. And in some places, you're just not accepted at all. Yeah.
So my neighbors at home actually cannot survive in that environment, because for them, they have to shake hands. But, in that environment, so you are giving me an example of where you shipped a certain consignment. And tell us that story.
Right. Actually, it was a different organization, and we were responding to our clients who were women and girls. And one of the things we normally provide are dignity kits, which include things like sanitary towels, includes headscarves, it includes things like lessons or whatever is culturally accepted in those places. We also buy innerwear for the women. And so in this INGO, they decided, we're going to supply the dignity kits. But they decided we're going to distribute in an open area in a location where it's Muslim, I wouldn't say it's just Muslim, but it's a restrictive kind of a culture. I don't want to, I'm just giving that as an example. It's a restrictive culture. Women are supposed to be covering themselves up. And so it was an open distribution. Women were required to come and collect. I mean, they came from a good place, but I don't think they did their homework about the culture. And so the women were coming to collect. And now they needed to protect this consignment. And so they had men with guns and smoking cigars, sitting there watching the women collecting these apparels from a mountain of those things. And so I thought, even as we plan to respond to humanitarian crisis, we have to do so with a lot of dignity and sensitivity of the culture. And that's why we normally have to do things like assessments. We have to speak to the community leaders. We have to understand what the women needs and how they need them. We have to listen to our clients. It's no longer those days that if there's an emergency, we all come with all manner of things and dump into this location. They might not necessarily be interested in them. It might not be appropriate. And so it's important for us, even in supply chain. And I keep saying that supply chain is not just about buying. It's also about understanding what is culturally acceptable in those locations as well. We are part and parcel of delivery, of operations of delivery of programs. So it's really critical for us to understand what type of apparels and how do we design the distribution in such a way that it's dignified and respectful of the culture that we're supporting. Yeah.
Supply chain is a male-dominated field. Probably at some point, do you face stereotypes because of your gender?
Um, yes, I would say personally, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky. Why? Because I got introduced into hard logistics at a very young age in my profession. And at some point, I was doing commercial transport sourcing for ICRC. And I would hire trucks. I would work with the men who were mainly driver stand boys. I would supervise the loading of these trucks. I would work in the warehouses. I would do verification of inventory. I would go to Mombasa. I would go to the long room. That it was called the customs long room. It was you have to move from one place. Now everything is technology has really helped clear things out very quickly. But that time it was really hands-on, hard logistics. What I know is that women were not considered appropriate to drive the 40-foot tracks or 20-foot tracks or to drive the what are they called the things in the warehouse
And the lifters.
the lifters. Women were not considered appropriate to drive those. But when I was in ICRC around the 2002 2001 2002 they started recruiting women to drive trucks, to drive those small vehicles and do cross-country travel all the way through Malaba to Uganda to Rwanda, and that was impressive. And even out of just my organization, like I was telling you before, I had a female who was actually doing maintenance of my vehicle. So I did not feel personally a lot of those stereotypes because I had very supportive bosses. Okay, but it's true. We have instances where women are not seen to be the right gender to do certain jobs. But I believe that watch this space. We're gonna run this world, and supply chain has also become soft. We have now soft supply chain like cash programming. The programs are changing. It's not those days that would do in-kind delivery. There's still some organizations who do that, like the WFP, like you buy maize and you supply it to a specific country and you export to a specific country. But we also have soft logistics where we're giving money to the households and the households are using this money to what really makes sense to them. Yeah. So that's the soft logistics is there. And so I don't see why women should be worried about, being in supply chain because with the advancement of technology, supply chain is actually becoming more easier. It's more, you can reach cross country. I mean, it's just an interesting place to be. And we still have very few women in the profession.
I knew that was going to be your last point.
Yeah, we don't have near enough women.
How do you balance family life, work life? Hold on that one. We are going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll tell us that.